Hello, my dear friends. Today we will take a look at the memoirs of Tiedemann, a German lieutenant of the Felgendarmerie. This is his comprehensive story of his service in the Wehrmacht. From 1935 until 1943, his memoirs impressed me with the immense number of hardships he had to overcome. It is truly a fascinating story that I hope you will find as interesting as I did. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce the sponsor of this video, Magellan TV. I recently watched the Battlefields of the World Wars documentary series there, and I must tell you that I was absolutely delighted with what I saw. This remarkable series takes viewers back in time to the most important battles of World Wars I and II, with an emphasis on tactics and technology. Magellan TV not only features stunning historical documentaries in 4K, but also a huge number of incredibly beautiful films about science, nature, crime, and much more. Magellan TV is completely ad-free and features an ever-growing collection of new 4K content added weekly. Follow the link in the video description or pinned comment to get a 30-day free trial to watch Battlefields of the World Wars and the rest of Magellan TV's extensive collection of over 3,000 documentaries. Well, now let's get started. My career started when I became a policeman in Unit Number 1 in the town of Harburg. The entire unit was assigned to the Wehrmacht in September 1935. We weren't volunteers. We were moved to the 3rd Battalion of the 69th Infantry Regiment in October 1935, and our 1st Battalion commander was Oberlieutenant Spengler. After that, there were years of service. In October 1938, my unit marched into the Sudets, and later we invaded Czechoslovakia. In August 1939, my unit was in the Sudets as a motorized unit. The rumor of war against Poland was going around, but we didn't believe it. September 10, 1939. We crossed the Neru River and took up a position in Zambro. Near there was the fortress of Lomska, having 2 Polish infantry regiments and 1 artillery regiment. It was expected that we would participate in the siege of this division. There was terrible fog that day, and the Poles succeeded in withdrawing their troops so that we didn't even notice it. However, we soon found ourselves in a fight with them. The Polish and German machine guns were engaged in a heavy firefight near Zambro. Our battalion lost 120 men. My 9th Company lost 32. We captured over 400 prisoners and 2 field guns. Not long after that, we were sent to Brest-Litovsk. We had to attack this fortress with the support of railroad artillery, but the Poles surrendered after their officers fled. We witnessed awful things. More than 300 Volksdeutsche were being held as prisoners in the fortress, and they were treated very badly. We took the town of Brest-Litovsk, the citizens of which wandered the streets, most of them drunk as pigs. So also, we encountered the Russian troops at Brest-Litovsk. June 4, 1941. We passed through Arras, Viero to Verdun. At Langres, the French attacked us, and 20 men in our battalion died. We thought the war was over, but we had orders to keep moving. The enemy resistance grew fiercer, and there were 7 dead in the 9th Company, and about 60 dead among the French. Despite the fact that France had capitulated, its forces continued to fight. Most of them were soldiers from the Maginot Line. Once at night, I was ordered to be in charge of a patrol with a reinforced police detachment. We suddenly heard the horses ahead of us and opened fire. With no resistance, 100 men and 80 horses and 1 tank surrendered. They said there were more French soldiers approaching, so we lay in ambush. 30 minutes later, we heard horse stomping, and silence ensued. We went crawling in the direction we heard the noise from, just like the Indians. We started shooting, so hard to make the French think there were many more of us than there actually were. And it worked. We captured 1 colonel, 9 officers, 500 soldiers, and 400 horses. This unit made plans to attack our battalion the next morning. July 10, 1941. We saw the Russians set Vitebsk on fire. The city wasn't completely captured until July 13, 1941. This happened after we used rocket artillery. Not long after that, my division, the 20th Panzer Division, marched towards Smolensk. We reached the northern part of the city on July 23rd. We were told that we were the unit of German troops that had advanced farthest into the interior of the Soviet Union. August 19, 1941. We marched north, through Smolensk, Vitebsk, Vitebsk-Opochka, Nikolaevko-Novgorod, and towards Leningrad. We halted around 20 kilometers from Leningrad, near the Neva. We had to take a bridgehead. There was heavy fighting. The 6th Company had 6 dead and 7 wounded. The enemy attacks using tanks and airplanes. September 1st, 1941. We faced the most violent resistance so far. There were 11 dead in my company. We sat in slushy trenches and were constantly under heavy fire of artillery, tanks, and mortars. Later that day, my company lost 26 men. An attack by our dive bombers on the Russian positions gave us a short break. September 16th. We are in our firing positions, suffering heavy casualties. Our troops are in very bad spirits. We feel as if waiting for execution. September 21st. It is Sunday, but what a Sunday it is. There's no difference. Why can't the Soviets surrender? We've been told so many times that they're almost finished. Later that day, there was an attack by 9 Russian planes and my company had 3 men killed. Will we all die in this foreign land? October 3rd, 1941. Finally, our battalion got reinforcements. We hear Adolf Hitler on the radio promising that the war will end before winter. November 7th, 1941. I've returned from leave. My battalion is in the Volkhov-Tikhvin area. Its mission is to cover the right flank in the direction of Budogosk. We must support the tank units that will meet the Finns in Tikhvin. Our troops reached Tikhvin, but the Russians prevented the Finns from arriving. We found ourselves in a tough situation now. November 17th. My battalion suffers huge losses. 71 men were killed. The Russians took away their uniforms and they lay exposed in the snow. There are new Russian air attacks. The temperature is below 30 degrees Celsius. In March 1942, we moved to a position to the west of Novgorod. We were engaged in a siege of 7 Russian divisions. This lasted for some time, and the Russians made frequent attempts to break out, but they failed. In May, the spring came. It's mud, and nothing but mud. We're short on supplies. The Russians are awful. Our anti-aircraft gunners shoot down most of the planes that bring food and ammunition to their troops. The weather is getting warmer, and now we are bothered by millions and millions of mosquitoes. Many people have gotten Volkov fever, which is a form of malaria, and I have gotten sick too. When I recover, I will get a leave and will be able to go to Germany. August 21st, 1942. We got new orders, first to move toward Staraya Russa, and then to the northeast of Volkhov. We were going to have to survive another winter in Russia. It was quite calm in our new position. We had built good fortifications. In early November 1942, there was something that turned my fate around. An order from the Armed Forces Personnel Directorate. Berlin stated that all the former policemen should join the Felgendarmerie. I was finally going to get an officer's training, being already a Hauptfeldwebel. I was glad to move away from the front. The school was in Lodz, Poland. I stayed in Lodz for 2 months and was ordered to convoy a train with 65 Feldgendarmes to the Caucasus. The train was being organized in Warsaw. Things had changed in the area in the Caucasus where we were going. The German units were pulling back, so of course we couldn't get there. I was ordered to go to Simferopol, Crimea, to the commander, General Mackencloth. My unit was split up and we were assigned to different locations. I could choose, and I chose Yalta. How beautiful it was! It was like a dream with sunshine, palm trees, and flowers. This beauty truly overwhelmed me. I served in the commandant's office of Simyaiz in southern Crimea. I headed a unit of the Tatar Auxiliary Police, HIPO or Hilfspolizei. Crimean Tatars volunteered for the Wehrmacht to join to help us fight against the Russians, with whom Crimean Tatars had been fighting for their freedom for many years. There were in total 10 battalions of Crimean Tatars. They served in the HIPO and helped in chasing the partisans. We had orders to guard these Tatars as well. One of our duties was to provide daily rations to the civilians. If warfare was always like this, I could surely withstand it for a while. At the beginning of March 1943, I was supposed to meet my comrades in Chabros and join a unit of the 1st Felgendarmerie, which is what I was initially assigned to do. They arrived from the Caucasus. This meant the end of my good life. In September 1943, I was promoted to lieutenant and joined my new unit in Poltava. It was now a quick retreat to Polom. Once again, all hell broke loose. At 9 p.m., an attack by Soviet bombers and heavy artillery began, targeting the railroad station at Polom. 18 echelons were demolished and many of our men were killed. I sat in the dugout, as I did so many times before, but had lost contact with my unit. It wasn't surprising. They were in Mariupol, and I joined them again. I got reinforced police detachment, and we had orders to hold off the Russians. It was a violent fight. We fought for our lives so that we wouldn't end up as prisoners of war in Siberia. September 11th, 1943. We arrived in Berdyansk and commenced the evacuation of the civilians. Of course, we set fire to anything the Russian troops could use. My unit was divided into several groups, and we rarely saw each other. An unexpected attack on the city by Russian T-34 tanks began, and we had to get out. We managed to do so. The situation in Novoyarsk was desperate. We were supposed to march, but it was all mud. We literally had to carry our tanks. We were about to move to Pokrovka. At the end of September, we were officially attached to the tank group and moved to Vinnytsia. I was given an unexpected order that I was to serve another 6 weeks at the front as a company commander. They probably forgot that I had fought at the front line in the 20th Motorized Infantry Division before I joined the Felgendarmerie. October 5th, 1943. We were attached to an infantry regiment, but it was defeated before we joined. Eventually, we ended up in the 231st Infantry Division, commanded by General Bloch. Initially, we were a reserve unit. All of a sudden, we were ordered to repulse 800 Russian paratroopers who had entrenched themselves nearby in a tank entrenchment. We had to advance at 1300. Our mission was to sweep the nearby village and attack their main forces. Our artillery was to cover the area. When we arrived in the village, the Russians opened fire from everywhere. We couldn't remain there, and we managed to break out. I was injured by shrapnel and had to leave my command duty. Eventually, my company managed to wipe out the Russians, supported by a unit of rocket launchers. But after only an hour, the Russians counterattacked and drove my company out again. When we attempted to retake the position, our Nebelwerfer fired on our unit and the entire company was annihilated. November 6, 1943. I'm in a bunker, wrapped in bandages. The Russians are getting stronger every day. I got a new company yesterday, and we are huddled in our trenches again. The Russians are only 60 meters away from us. It is terrible. We can only move at night. November 24th. Soon we have a short rest. The last enemy artillery attack lasted 80 minutes. How is it possible for anyone to survive such explosions? This night, the reconnaissance men must sweep clear the Russian entrenchment so that we can destroy the Russian headquarters bunker. November 25th. Right after midnight, all hell broke loose. The Russians are on the offensive. 2 times they were in our positions and we had to fight hand to hand. It was only with hand grenades that we were able to push them back. We held our positions. A new unit arrived and we left. After only 2 hours, the Russians finally occupied the trenches. We move all the time. At 5 a.m., alert! We are ordered to assault the Russian bridgehead. We are transported for 12 kilometers, and we move into position to wait for the promised reinforcements, which never arrived. The Russian Black Death stormtroopers keep terrorizing us. This refers to the Marines of the Soviet Union. They wore black uniforms. November 26th. We are unable to attack, but we are ordered to hold this vital territory. The Russians fire rockets all the time. The rocket mortars are relentless. My company lost 8 men, and there are only 34 left of us. We should hold the front line at 800 meters. All of us assume that the Russians will attack soon. We don't have any support for the flanks. The Russians have a total of 3,000 men. My battalion has 150. We have only 1 MG-42 and 1 tank, positioned between 1st and 2nd companies. We have 2 self-propelled vehicles behind us in reserve. We have good positions. At night, we expect the Russians, but the atmosphere is unnaturally calm. We got 16 men as reinforcements. We have to constantly inspect all sentries to keep them awake. At 5:30 a.m., an enemy artillery attack is launched, but again, things fall silent. All of a sudden, we all notice the Russians coming, not towards us, but towards the 1st company. We form up in a square, and my right flank is in contact with the left flank of the 1st company. We have a tank over here, but it was almost instantly destroyed by Russian artillery fire. At 6:30 a.m., I see the Russian infantry slowly approaching. I see about 800 to 900 men. There are 120 men in our company, and we have no radio. I order a soldier to run to the headquarters bunker behind us and bring 2 reserve self-propelled guns. I couldn't believe my ears when he returned and said that the headquarters on the self-propelled vehicles had left the battlefield. The Russians were advancing and the 1st Company opened fire. The Russians returned rifle and machine gun fire and the 1st Company couldn't hold them off. The company commander had been killed and the rest of the company moved to us. The Russians, to our surprise, advanced towards the location of our headquarters, and we had a short respite. I commanded my company to move quickly, and we climbed a small hill. Now the Ivans spotted us, and they opened a murderous fire. One after another, my soldiers died. In 3 hours, there was no ammunition left. What now? I had only half of my troops left. Suddenly, I felt a strong blow to my left arm, and my uniform turned red. There was no pain. I can't remember what I was thinking. I and 8 to 10 men slowly moved backward, and I felt another, stronger blow. I was thrown to the ground. A Gefreiter who had been wounded in the knee thought I was dead and crawled over to me to take my badge or soldier's record book. He thought he was the only man who had survived and didn't want to be shot dead as a deserter. When he found that I was alive, he dragged me 50 to 60 meters away to a cornfield, even though I asked him not to. The Russians arrived and bludgeoned our wounded men to death with rifle butts. What now? We crawled through a cornfield a few hours later, and suddenly we saw a German soldier. In fact, they were 3 artillerymen who had lost their unit, and they had 2 horses and a wagon, thank God. We rode in the wagon, but after about a kilometer, I heard a loud noise of engines and an explosion. I blacked out. When I came to consciousness, I found out that there had been an attack by Russian ground attack planes. The 3 artillerymen and their horses had been killed. Only the unknown Gefreiter and I survived. After a long and utterly torturous night journey, when I was weak with pain and loss of blood, we encountered German soldiers again. I endured several surgeries, and eventually I was sent to Odessa, then to Lemberg, and then to Germany. I spent over 2 years in the hospital until I recovered. The battalion commander who betrayed us was awarded the German Cross of Gold for staunch resistance to the enemy. I received only a strip for my wound, but I survived the war. He didn't, and I won't mention his name. Was it true heroism or madness that made me do such things? I thought about it for the rest of the wartime. Certainly, it wasn't heroism. The war is so cruel that nobody can understand it. I was in the Wehrmacht for 10 years, about 5 years at the front. Most of my friends and comrades remained in a foreign land. That is all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Bye everyone. See you next time.